Good morning. I'm Peter Fahm, and I'm the director of the Michael S. Ansari Africa Center here at the Atlantic Council. On behalf of the acting chairman of the Atlantic Council, General Brent Scowcroft, and our president and CEO, Fred Kemp, it's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning for this discussion of Somaliland's achievement in a fragile region. Before introducing our guest of honor, permit me to say a word about the Council's Africa Center. The Atlantic Council's Ansari Africa Center was established in September 2009 with the mission to help transform U.S. and European policy approaches to Africa by emphasizing the building of strong geopolitical partnerships with African states and strengthening economic growth and prosperity on the continent. The center seeks to engage and inform both policymakers and the general public of the strategic importance of Africa, both globally and for the American and European interests in particular, through programs and publications, as well as a robust media presence. Within the context of the Atlantic Council's work to promote constructive transatlantic leadership and engagement in international affairs, based on the central role of the Atlantic community in meeting the international challenges of our time, the Center supports and collaborates with the public and private sectors in forging practical solutions to challenges and opportunities in Africa. It's in the spirit of this mandate that I'm delighted to convene this particular discussion and to welcome His Excellency Ahmed Mohamed Sillanyo, President of the Republic of Somaliland, and the members of the delegation which accompanied him to Washington for meetings this week with United States officials and other stakeholders. The delegation includes First Lady Amina Haji Mohammed Jirde, the Minister of Presidential Affairs, Hirsi Ali Haji Hassan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mohammed Abdullahi Omar, Dr. Saad Ali Shir, the Minister of Planning, Hussein Abdi Douale, the Minister of Mining, Energy, and Water Resources, Osman Sardid, the Minister of State for Finance, as well as Kumiya Mohammed, Advisor to the President. Before introducing President Sillanyo, let me also acknowledge the presence here of several fellow Somaliland enthusiasts, among them some distinguished veterans of the International Observation Team at the 2010 election, which resulted in President Sillanyo's inauguration. And like His Excellency Don Ramon Gil Casares, the Ambassador of Spain to the United States, Ambassador Lang Shammerhorn, who was also with us on that delegation, as well as great Atlantic Council Board Director, Ambassador Mary Carlin Yates, former Deputy to the Commander for Civil Military Affairs at the U.S. Africa Command, her husband, Ambassador John Yates, former U.S. Special Envoy for Somalia, and Atlantic Council International Advisory Board member, Teodoro Sashanafi. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Also delighted to also welcome Ambassador Martinez Caro, the Director of Spain's Casa Africa, who honors us with his presence. As I look around, I could probably go on singling out other members at length and depth for their engagement in Somaliland. There's something about the country and its people and their remarkable achievement, despite the odds against them, that draws together an equally intrepid group of friends abroad, many of whom then go on to draw still others into Somaliland's circle. If I can just cite one example from my own case, my enthusiasm, some unkind souls might accuse me of a mania, led me to convince my good friend Greg Mills of the Brenthurst Foundation in South Africa to fund a study by a group of prominent African specialists, including Professors Christopher Clapham of Cambridge, Holger Hansen of the University of Copenhagen, and Jeffrey Herbst, then of Miami of Ohio, on Somaliland's non-recognition, copies of which are available outside. Greg, in turn, was won over by his own visits to Somaliland. As part of that project, that he brought in counterinsurgency expert David Kilcullen. And as a result, there's a chapter on Somaliland in what lessons it has to give for the rest of that region in a book which Greg, David, and I just co-authored on Somalia, Fixing Africa's Most Fragile State. And that's for the Department of Shameless Self-Promotion. In short, this is an extraordinary story that, if you're new to it, prepare to be engaged. Now, it's my honor to introduce the man whom you came here to hear, the President of the Republic of Somaliland, His Excellency Ahmed Mohamed Sillanyo. A native of the northwestern town of Burao, in what is then the British Protectorate of Somaliland, President Sillanyo earned undergraduate and master's degrees in economics at the University of Manchester. Following Somaliland's independence on June 26, 1960, and the subsequent independence of Somalia Italiana, and the union of the two, he served in government of the resulting Somali Republic as Minister of Planning and Coordination, Minister of Commerce, and Chairman of the National Economic Board. As the former Somali Democratic Republic increasingly turned into a dictatorship, and a genocidal one at that, he served as chairman of the Somali National Movement from 1984 to 1990, the longest tenure of any leader of Somaliland's resistance and what eventually became its national liberation movement. Here I would draw your attention to the fact that of all the successful liberation organizations on the African continent, only the SNM voluntarily disarmed itself after it won its struggle, handed power over to local leaders, and abstained from turning itself into a political party, much less dominating the post-independence political scene. It's a remarkable achievement. President Sillanyo subsequently served as a member of Somaliland's House of Representatives, as the country's finance minister. He ran for president in 2003 and lost to Dahir Rayal Kahin by 80 votes out of 500,000 cast. I mention this because of the extraordinarily exceptional manner in which he contested the results in the courts, lost, yet graciously and peacefully accepted the ruling. It's worth noting on an African continent where electoral and post-electoral violence remains very much a concern, that even a decade ago, Somaliland's leaders and peoples evinced incredible political maturity. Running again in 2010 as the candidate of the Peace, Unity, and Development Party, Kumiye, he beat the incumbent by a convincing 16% margin, and after a smooth transition, for which I think credit is owed to both the victor and the defeated, he was inaugurated as president on July 27th of the same year. Since then, President Sillanyo has presided over multi-party municipal elections, streamlined the country's tax system, and if I may, Mr. President, I would suggest when you meet with U.S. congressional leaders this week, you tell them how you increase revenues by cutting the tax rate by over half. He's also completed the construction of over 150 schools, enhanced the professionalization of the country's military, and maintained peace and stability within Somaliland's borders that make it such an exception in the region. And please welcome me join me in welcoming His Excellency, President Sillanyo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Let me take my reading glasses out, please. I would like to extend my appreciation to Dr. Peter Pham and the Atlantic Council for inviting me to give this address today. The Atlantic Council, thanks in part to Peter Pham's diligent leadership at the Michael Ansari Africa Center, has stood out among America's leading public policy institutions for promoting a truly interdisciplinary approach to understanding the politics and economics of East Africa. It is therefore a great pleasure and an honor for me to exchange views today on Somaliland and the future of our region with such distinguished participants. Ladies and gentlemen, I have traveled to Washington today from Somaliland, a nation that defends its borders, protects its citizens, and mints its own currency. A nation that your former Secretary of Defense called simply an entity that works. but a nation that has not yet been recognized by the United States or the international community. Somaliland became an independent sovereign state on 26 June 1960. 5 days after independence, Somaliland chose to unite with Somalia with the aim of creating a greater Somalia, comprised of several former European colonies with citizens of ethnic Somali origin. Almost immediately, the people of Somaliland were excluded from decision-making and representative governance in the new Somali Republic. In turn, our people rejected the Somali Republic's constitution by referendum, and their disenchantment continued throughout the early years of the Union as political and economic isolation grew. After assuming power in a military coup in October 1969, Mohamed Siad Barre led a brutal military dictatorship that in the 1980s embarked on a violent campaign against the people of Somaliland, killing more than 50,000 civilians and displacing 10 times as many people. Despite the atrocities committed, Somaliland rose from the ashes to rebuild and emerge stronger than ever before. We were determined not to allow such a massacre of men, women and children happen again. The people of Somaliland would no longer be victims in our own land. Following the collapse of the Somali state in 1991, the people of Somaliland decided to withdraw from the Union and reassert Somaliland's sovereignty and independence in full compliance with international law. As Somalia's disintegration unfolded, Somaliland built a functioning, stable, and democratic state. While the international community spent millions of dollars trying to save Somalia from itself, we focused on maintaining peace within our borders, building strong state institutions, and creating a stable economy. And I'm pleased to say that Somaliland will be celebrating 22 years of independence on May 18th this year. Despite enormous challenges, Somaliland has held 4 peaceful elections and has preserved a culture of democracy. Our security forces have ensured that terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab have no safe haven in Somaliland, and we have tackled piracy off our coast with determined and comprehensive actions. Over 100 individuals involved in acts of piracy have been jailed by the Somaliland government. We have forged agreements with other governments on the transfer of these criminals. Our legislature has institutionalized Somaliland's anti-piracy laws, and we have partnered with friends in Europe and America to thwart these and other violent extremists both on land and at sea. But we also recognize that there is more work to be done. We have also made great strides with regard to education, development, and public health. While others in our region have struggled with famine and relied on external food aid, we have invested in food security and avoided the afflictions of chronic hunger and disease. In fact, during the last drought in the region, our government donated nearly $700,000 in humanitarian assistance to Somalia. We accomplished all this independently with limited assistance from the international community. This spirit of self-reliance continues to guide our nation to this day. My presence in Washington today is a testament to our success. I recently stood in front of my parliament and described the state of our union to the people of Somaliland, one of the methods that we employ to ensure accountability and good governance. I spoke of my administration's challenges, especially in the diplomatic arena, where recognition remains our overarching goal, and our accomplishments, which include strengthening the independence of the Election Commission, facilitating the decentralization of the state, and empowering local communities. increasing government revenue and streamlining the tax system, presenting for the first time in our history a balanced national budget that currently stands at $180 million per annum, institutionalizing public finance reform with our first report due for publication at the end of this month, further expanding and professionalizing the armed forces and police, improving relationships with the international aid agencies, and investing in education, which has allowed us to build dozens of new schools, hire thousands of new teachers, and make primary schooling free for all students. I am also proud of our most recent democratic achievement. Just a few months ago, we held our first municipal elections in over 10 years. In this process, over 4,000 candidates competed for 400 seats on local councils in cities and towns across Somaliland. As the political debates that framed those elections subside and these municipalities settle into the task of governing, we look forward to holding parliamentary elections as soon as feasible following the completion of our voter registration process. Somaliland continues to secure its borders to advance peace and stability in the region. Earlier last year, clashes occurred in the Bohodle area of the Sol region between government forces and certain militia groups that were seeking to destabilize and sow discord among the Somaliland population living in that region. It's important to stress that all conflict is regrettable and only a measure of last resort. During these operations, the government took every measure to safeguard the well-being of civilians, including full access to water and other basic services. To advance wider peace, my government also conducted civilian reconciliation initiatives in key towns throughout the area. Following successful dialogue with militia groups, the government released more than 200 prisoners and welcomed a number of the militia's key leaders into Somaliland's cabinet. To reinforce the peace, our government has also earmarked more than $1.2 million for development projects for the benefit of the communities in that region. Somaliland will continue to promote reconciliation as part of our ongoing efforts to strengthen unity within our borders. If you have been to Somaliland as a guest, a tourist, or an investor, you know that there is an oasis of calm in the troubled Horn of Africa. Dozens of international companies now recognize that Somaliland is a unique frontier market with real opportunities. Areas of Somaliland are anticipated to contain commercial quantities of oil, and energy companies are undertaking significant explorations. Coca-Cola has opened a state-of-the-art bottling plant, and other companies are beginning to recognize Somaliland's potential as a regional hub. Somaliland is very much open for business. We are proud of what we have accomplished with only limited outside help. On all fronts, Somaliland is poised to continue advancing security and prosperity for all citizens. As we do this, my people and I are watching developments to our south very closely. We hope that Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud will succeed where past transitional governments have failed. We also hope that enhanced diplomatic support and foreign aid from the international community will impede the corruption, tribalism, and militancy that have afflicted the people of Somalia for too long. A secure and peaceful Somalia that's able to build and preserve strong state institutions, fight terrorism and violent extremism, and stimulate a functioning economy is in Somaliland's national interest. To this end, over the past year, my government has undertaken good faith efforts to renew dialogue with Somalia. and held direct talks with the transitional federal government in London, Istanbul, and Dubai. These talks laid the groundwork for my meeting just 9 days ago in Turkey with President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, where we affirmed our shared commitment to build trust and improve relations between our governments. Future meetings, the first of which we agreed to convene within 90 days, will aim to strengthen cooperation in the fight against terrorism, extremism, piracy, illegal fishing, toxic dumping, and other serious crimes. Somalia and Somaliland can and should be equal partners. Yet, as we proceed down this track, we hope and expect that those who are now reaching out to the new government in Mogadishu will do the same with our government in Hargeisa. In this regard, we have already received assurances from the U.S. government that its recognition of the government of Somalia will not negatively impact America's ongoing engagement in Somaliland. Our people were indeed encouraged by this gesture. However, as we move forward in dialogue and cooperation and continue to serve as a model of security, stability, and democratic governance in this fragile region, the people of Somaliland expect more. And that is why I have come to Washington on the heels of the landmark agreement between Somaliland and Somalia. The United States and the international community have recognized that the status quo in the Horn of Africa is not sustainable. Their engagement with Mogadishu seeks to stimulate and sustain the transition of Somalia to a viable sovereign entity. The same type of engagement is required for Somaliland. These two tracks are not mutually exclusive. Our people believe that the time has now come for the international community to fully recognize the security and stability they have preserved in the midst of chaos, and to acknowledge the legitimate, sovereign, independent status of their nation. A new international paradigm for Somaliland is overdue. Building on the Somaliland-Somalia dialogue that we have established and the bilateral relations that we are working to expand with other governments, a critical next step will be Somaliland's attainment of the observer status in our region's Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, and in the African Union. The United States can do much to engage its friends in the Horn of Africa and beyond to help us secure this role, which will facilitate further dialogue with key stakeholders in the region, including Somalia. We are not asking others to take a chance on what Somaliland may one day become, but rather to simply recognize the current state of affairs. Somaliland is a fully functioning sovereign entity. From 1960 to 1991, we gave unity within Great Somalia a chance. It did not work, and we cannot turn back. Today, only the people of Somaliland can and will decide their future, not the government in Mogadishu, not the international community. With proper diplomatic recognition, Somaliland will be able to contribute more effectively to a sustainable and prosperous future for the Horn of Africa, building on our own experience in forging an oasis of stability in a long troubled region. This is the pragmatic option, and it's also the only option. Recognition of Somaliland's independence is long overdue and must be part of any sustainable peace in this region. Somaliland, we also believe self-reliance and staying the course. We have rebuilt our nation from the ashes of a brutal war. We are willing to protect our freedom at any cost because we know its true value. We know its true value. And it is this value, more than any other, that we share with the United States. Thank you very much.
The President has now graciously agreed to take questions and make this a discussion. And joining us, very pleased to also welcome Mohammed Omar, the Foreign Minister of Somaliland. He's been abroad for a number of years. Most recently, he was the spokesman on foreign policy issues for the Komiya Party. For that, he comes from academia, a political scientist, taught at a number of British institutions, and before that lived in the Netherlands and worked for a number of state and non-state agencies there as well. So a rich experience in the West. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay. And so when we call upon you, if you would be so kind, wait for the microphones, and then please also identify yourself, your name and affiliation. Okay. The lady right here.
Good morning, Honorable President, His Excellency President, First Lady, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to thank Atlantic Council so much for taking African issues serious, and the United States government for being part of the Somali development and good governance. My name is Rosemary Segero. I'm the president of Hope for Tomorrow. We focus on conflict resolution and violence prevention. I have attended all the Somali events in this city praying for Somali, and I'm just so happy that Somali at last has a government, and may God bless Somali and also bless America, which has been part of this. Now that you are here and with your good leadership, how can I work with Somali professionals who are based in San Diego, 10 of them. They are pilots, they are professionals, they are doctors, and they are really interested in going back to their country and develop their country. And in fact, we have a paper on that which we have written, and I'm so happy to have attended this event here. How do you welcome them back with their projects, with their professionalism? They need to be part of you. You cannot do it alone. And me, even being a Kenyan, I still want to work with you. And now that the First Lady is here, First Lady, encourage the President to focus on women, young girls, and women, and empower women. Inclusion, we want more than 20 women in Parliament too, Mr. President. If you work with women, the government will be very, very nice and put more women in Parliament. So how are we going to work with you? The Somalis in San Diego, United States, and all over the world who are professionals. You need to give them freedom, be part of you, work with you. Thank you so much. And welcome.
Thank you, Rosemary. I guess the question, is twofold, Mr. President, on the role of the diaspora can play in Somaliland's development and the role women can play.
Well, thank you very much indeed. I think, Somaliland has a very strong diaspora. And Somaliland is abroad, anywhere within states or in other countries, do always play, the communities play a very, very, very important role in helping people. They send money. They always support the cause of Somaliland's independence. And they always come to the country and organize meetings, and they also spread the cause of Somaliland wherever they are. So for us, as far as we are concerned, we are always welcoming Somaliland diaspora. And as a matter of fact, very soon we will be holding a big conference in Somaliland itself, inviting intellectuals and from Somaliland who are coming from all over the world to discuss issues concerning Somaliland, and how to spread it throughout the world. And also, we are prepared to listen to their advice and to their expertise and to benefit from their expertise in all fields. So, in fact, this meeting is going to be held very soon.
I think I thought the question had much more relevance to Somalia than Somaliland. because our diaspora have been returning back to the country for the last 2 years. And our parliament is led by people from diaspora. There are a dozen of cabinet ministers who came from diaspora, including myself. Our business and economy is run by our diaspora. So the diaspora is part and parcel of Somaliland's development. So thank you very much. I think the President gave a pretty comprehensive response on that.
And would either of you care to address the issue of women?
Yeah.
Women play a very important role in our political system. As a matter of fact, my government has appointed more women in government than any previous administration we had in our country. We have two full ministers, and they are also in various parts of the administration, at every level of administration. And in fact, also, the Somaliland government has proposed to Parliament to increase the number of women which would be elected to Parliament, to giving them a quota. According to our law, it's very difficult to give a quota, but we have submitted a proposal to Parliament because, you know, in our culture, you know, in fact, it's the women themselves who have not been supporting the movement of the women to be chosen in Parliament to a very large extent, because of their belief that the woman's role is in the House. But the Somali government has been putting proposals forward to Parliament, and we are hoping that more women will be given a chance to engage in politics and to be elected for political participation in Parliament and other elected bodies.
Thank you. Here.
Tony Carroll, welcome, Mr. President. And I can tell you from personal experiences that my house runs a lot better when my wife and daughter are in charge. So I think it's a good idea to follow that comment. I thank you very much. It's been my honor and privilege to have visited Hargeisa and meet with you in the past, and I'm delighted with the great success and very proud that you've been able to move so boldly. One of the constraints that still impedes the development of Somaliland's economy is the inability of remittances to flow freely. I hope that while you're here this week, you'll have an opportunity to speak with the Treasury Department, I think, who are unduly restrictive on monitoring and restricting those flows, financial flows, because certainly the case of remittances into Somaliland has been a big part of the success, and I think that more could be done if reasonable measures were taken in allowing those flows, financial flows, to continue.
I think we encourage transmission of support our people get from abroad and from communities abroad. That's something which we encourage very much, and if I have not been hearing any complaints, but if there are, we are prepared to look at it definitely.
Yes, fine.
Welcome, Mr. President. My name is Abdul Halim Ibrahim Rijal. I work for the U.S. Department of State Digital Outreach Team, and I welcome you and your delegation and the First Lady here. I hail from that area of the region in Somaliland, and I was away for a while, for almost 25 years, and I went back last year to Somaliland, where I grew up. My question goes back to the communication side, which is the restriction of the opening the radio stations like FMs. And I was appalled when I heard that Somaliland, where the freedom of expression is almost better than anywhere else in the region, but it's still we are lacking what's called the FMs and the radios. So I'm not sure what's hindering that process. Is it the legislative side of the Somalilanders? Is it people are still talking about why the FMs, radios stations are not opening up in Somaliland, not the government side. I grew up like 2 miles from Radio Hargeisa a long time ago. But where we stand in that process of opening, given we have the press, the print press, and we have the TV stations, but where is the FMs? And if you go and see where's the chaos in Somalia, South Central Somalia now, we have like more than 50, sometimes 80 stations. Thank you.
Thanks. Could we take a couple of questions, or do we deal with each question?
I think it'd be easier.
Okay. Thanks, Abdi Halim, for your question, which is which related to communication and mass media. I'm very pleased to tell the audience, Somaliland has 14 daily newspapers in Hargeisa. And by and large, Somaliland leads freedom of expression in the region. If you look into the countries around Somaliland, there isn't much press freedom than what we have here in Somaliland. We also have got private TVs that are freely operating in our country. We have a national radio that has been expanded at its capacity and can be listened throughout Horn of Africa, and indeed many other countries as well. But in relation to radios, we are looking into, and there is a legislation that's now at the Parliament to be agreed upon by the Parliament. That legislation will provide a policy framework, but also the legislative framework that we need to have a proper code of conduct for radios. We do understand Somalis in general, but particularly Somalilanders listen radios very much. And in rural areas, radio is the only media access that people can. So we do understand the importance of having different radio stations. But at the moment, we have a national radio center that's enough for the whole country. But we are looking into providing a private radio, if that's what you are getting at, private radio stations. But there has to be a legal and policy framework before, and that's what we're looking at the moment.
Thank you. Mr. Minister, since you brought up the Parliament, let me take a point of privilege as moderator and invite you or the President to. There's been some consternation recently among Somaliland's friends about the delay in the legislative elections. And I want to give you an opportunity to present the explanation and perhaps explain it to some of our Somaliland's friends who are perhaps concerned about the delay in the parliamentary elections, both for the Gertie and the House of Representatives.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. We're looking at trying to delay the parliamentary elections. The President Ahmed Sillanyo has been in power since July 2010, which is almost coming 3 years. And if we hold every year an election, I mean, we just came from a local election, which we have conducted last year successfully. And if according to our plan, we should have had an election this year as well for the parliament. But that means the government will not be able to focus on economic development, education, health, and water. So what we are trying to consider is to put it off the parliamentary election and to hold the presidential election and the parliamentary election at the same time. So the country will have time to focus very much on our development, on our consolidation, our peace and stability, but also our economic. The other issue here is to have a voter registration list first. We have had our local elections without a voter registration, but as a nation we decided to have a voter registration process before we hold a next election, and that will need time, and we are working with the international community, including US government, to have a credible voter registration system in Somaliland before we hold another election. So that is the reason.
All right, Mr. Moderator.
Richard Messick, I'm a consultant to the UN on anti-corruption and governance. Somaliland, like the rest of Somalia, appears to be blessed with enormous potential for resource development. But of course, many African countries that have resources have been cursed by resources. and I wondered what steps you're planning to take to avoid the resource curse and ensure the resources benefit the public at large.
Okay. The Minister of Mine.
Thanks for the question. I'm mindful of that question. I'm the Minister of Energy, so that's a relevant question to me. This government really is one key issue that is really concerned about, to ensure that we don't repeat the resource curse, the proverbial resource curse that has happened in a lot of African countries. And we are absolutely determined to learn from those mistakes. Right now, we haven't really extracted anything out of the ground, be it hard minerals or hydrocarbons. But we want to make sure that before we do, that we have legal framework and legal regimes and institutions in place to ensure that basically we don't end up, getting away from us. We do have time to do that, and we're absolutely in the process of establishing these type of frameworks to ensure that basically we extract these resources and produce them to the benefit of our people in a sustainable and manageable way. We have been looking at other examples in the world. Matter of fact, I personally visited Norway, which I always aspired to look up to in terms of how well they have really managed their resources. They have I think the largest sovereign wealth fund ahead of Abu Dhabi, would you believe, because they basically find that they made an excellent job of managing their resources. So we have been really looking at the type of examples that really worked around the world. Another example we really look at very closely is the Ghanaian system, which has basically started producing from the Jubilee field. We are going to try and do two things before we really extract anything out of the ground in terms of oil. Number one, we need to put in a modern generation, fourth or fifth generation hydrocarbon code, petroleum code that is. The one that we have is outdated. We want to ensure that we have that in place. We want to run it to the legislator to make sure that is in there. The other thing we're really planning to do is to establish what they call an Oil Revenue Act. An Oil Revenue Act to ensure before anything, any barrel of oil comes out of the ground, we know what the revenue that's being generated out of that barrel of oil is going to really go where. Some of it's going to be saved within the new generations. Some of it's going to go to the general fund for expenditure, and some of it's going to go for rainy day fund and so on and so forth. And also, we want to really kind of build a very strong institutions. We don't really have a strong, ministry yet. We need to really build the capacity to ensure one day we'll be able to really kind of manage this resource ourselves, besides the international oil and gas companies. So ultimately, also, we aspire to form a national oil company as well, to basically build the capacity that we need ultimately to be able to really kind of be the next Aramco's 50 years from now. So we are absolutely mindful of this issue, the curse, the resource curse. And I have read about it, and I dream about it a lot, and I don't want to repeat it in Somaliland.
I just want to include one point. It's really a good question, and that is, in the Ministry of Finance, we are in the process of really doing public financial management reform with the Accountant General, with the Auditor General, all the stakeholders, the Tender Board, the Civil Commission, the Parliament, all of them. So we want to actually streamline the system, the financial system, and have each pillar is really run as it is run here. And the first draft of that public financial management reform, which actually addresses our priorities, what are the immediate, what are the medium range, what are the long range that we actually need, that overguards all of these issues, is just coming out at the end of this month. So we want these pillars to be built, and actually when we extract all that oil and what have you, and minerals that we believe are in there, that we have a system that's stable within the Somaliland government. And I think public financial management reform is the trend that depends upon whether it's aid, whether it's investment, all of that. So we are not waiting for others actually to do it for us. It is us who are doing the public financial management reform. So each, as it is practiced financial here, that every level of financial stability is in there. Thank you so much.
Speaking on economic growth, if I can interject here and move that discussion along, in addition to, of course, the country's potential hydrocarbon and mineral wealth, there's the resource of its geography, where you're located, the great port at Berbera. Yeah. If you would, either of you or any of the other ministers, care to talk about other engines of economic growth and other opportunities?
Thank you very much. I'm the Minister for National Planning and Development, so perhaps this is a question which is pertinent to my job. You are right. We are blessed in many ways. I mean, if you look at the map, you may say, well, that's a piece of barren land over there. But it's much more than that. We're blessed with minerals. We're blessed with hydrocarbons and oil. And we're also blessed with the livestock. We have like 16 million livestock. So I think we have the highest per capita livestock in the world, in a way.
But the biggest exporter of livestock during the Hajj to Saudi
Arabia.
Yeah.
Last year we exported for 3.2 million livestock to Saudi Arabia. And we have also a sea that extends up to 850 kilometers along the Red Coast. So plenty of fish there as well. But the geographical location of Somaliland is also an asset. We are located at the junction between Africa and Asia and Middle East and Europe. Just off the coast of Berbera, there are about between 20 and 30,000 ships pass every year. So it's really a strategic location, and that's a strategic location we want to, exploit. There has been a lot of interest from different investors around the world to invest in Berbera, because Berbera serves not only Somaliland, but also serves, Ethiopia and Somalia and, the rest of the neighbors. And we believe it will be able to serve, all the way countries as far as South Sudan, and Uganda. So there's plenty of potential, and we're looking into that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right here, Dave Peterson. Right here.
E.J. Hogener with ICG. If I may ask two questions. One is if you could speak a little bit more about the bilateral talks between Somaliland and the SNG and how you hope to improve this trust between both your government and the government in Mogadishu, i.e. do you continue to see bilateral meetings being the main mechanism, or are you going to try to set up some mechanisms or institutions that are going to try to facilitate better understandings and relations between Somaliland and at least South and Central Somalia? And then secondly, if you are contemplating doing something similar with the government in Puntland and trying to build relations between your two states. Thank you.
The talks between Somaliland and Somalia. I am a member of the Somaliland's committee that's interested to conduct a dialogue with Somalia. We have had a number of meetings. We met in Scheveningen in the UK, and then we met in Dubai. We have currently had a meeting in Istanbul and Ankara. First of all, I would like to state very clearly the Somaliland's objective for the talks is twofold. One is to look at where we can cooperate with Somalia. Somalia is our neighbor. We have, as the President clearly stated in his speech, we have every interest in Somalia being stable and secure. Because Somalia has been, for quite a long time, a source of insecurity to the whole region, including Somaliland. Therefore, we are very much in favor of Somali's stability that's being supported by a number of governments. And therefore, we would like to look at where we can cooperate. We can do quite a lot of stuff together. We can cooperate on security issues, fight against extremism. We can work on counter-piracy work. We can also develop and have cooperation on trade and economic development. So these are important, and this is one of the key objectives for us. But that's for the short term. But for the long term, we also want to address the political issues. We would like Somalia to understand Somaliland's long-term and ambition. We want to make very clear that Somaliland wants to be recognized by the international community. And we do need Somali administration to accept and understand that. So these are the objectives from our side. There are also a number of international communities that are supporting this process, including UK, US, Emirates, South Africa, Norway, and the European Union. These are international partners who are working with the two governments on trying to get a better outcome from this process. So these are our strategies, these are the process, and this is an internationally facilitated process. The two partners have accepted as equal partners to the discussion that has been agreed in the UK, but also agreed in Istanbul and Ankara just a week ago. President Hassan Mahmoud has accepted the framework that we have agreed in the UK, which is that the two parties to this discussion are Somaliland and Somalia. And these are two equal partners that are going to look into their relationship, trying to see where they can cooperate and try to resolve the long-term political issues. So these are the framework and the process we have adopted, and we do hope that this will bring some good outcome for both countries. Thank you.
The gentleman in the back. Oh, excuse me, one second.
Puntland, the Puntland administration, which is part of Somalia, we have had a good relationship. We work together on security issues because we have a common problem posed by Al-Shabaab. As you know, Al-Shabaab have been driven away from parts in Somalia, and there are intelligence reports which are indicating very clearly that they may make their way up into the north, i.e. the government of Somaliland, but also the Puntland region of Somalia. So we do have a common enemy, and we are happy to work with Puntland administration on those issues.
The gentleman in the back with the microphone.
Bismillah. First of all, I will greet you, Mr. President, and I'm very impressed your cabinet members. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am indeed founding fathers in Washington, D.C. of SNM. Me and Ibrahim Megag and others, we worked here. But originally I am from the South. And sometimes I know you were my leader. But today, I would like to inform you that on the behalf of Somalia, we love Somaliland. We are brothers. The crisis that happened in Somalia, it did not just affect Somaliland, but it affected entire Somalia. And the struggle that when I was SNM was to fight against the regime, but not Somalia to become two nations. So therefore, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you to be the president that unites Somalia, but not the president that creates secession. That's my prayer for you, sir. Second, my question to you is that you said that Somaliland became independent, and that statement really, it hurt me, because you never been colonized by the South. We were through. You said Somaliland became 22 years independent when you were making the lecture today, but it sounded like Somalia colonized the South. No, we are brothers, Mr. President, and the first Prime Minister after Abdrazak was from the North. You had a fully to participate and to lead the country. And now, as a Somali, we want to elect you as a president, our president, not just the president of Somaliland. We are ready. We'll come in the election, do the process. We have nothing against anybody. So my question to you, inshallah, there are other people who are waiting is to the foreign minister, my dear brother, did you try what is the major causes that Somaliland feels that they don't want to be part of Somalia? Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much for your question. First of all, I want to tell you that the SNM, which you clearly stated that you had been a member of, had achieved what it stood for. The aim was to free the people of Somaliland from the dictatorial regime of Siad Barre, that has committed a genocide against the people of Somaliland. So that objective has been achieved. But unlike other movements in Africa, the SNM has handed over power to its own people. And as a result of that, we have now a democratic system in our country that people, anyone, any national of Somaliland government, Somaliland country can stand for power and for office. Coming back on the issue of whether Somaliland stands as secessionist or whether it stands for other issues, I have to disagree with you, I'm afraid. Somaliland's case is not a secession. If you look at the African Union report in 2005, it made very clear that the Somaliland's case is not a secessionist case. It is a resolution of a union that the people of Somaliland had voluntarily opted for in 1960. And it's the same people of Somaliland that have now decided to reassert their independence. Your offer of running Somalia has been made on many occasions, but the people of Somaliland have opted to reassert their independence and to run their country. We would like Somalia to become stable, as the president has indicated in his speech. We wish Somalia success. We wish Somalia to become a stable government, a good neighbor. But the people of Somaliland have made a decision. They want to reassert their independence, and they're looking for an international recognition. And Somalia should only expect good things from Somaliland. We pose no threat to Somalia. We want to work with Somalia on many issues, as we have said. But there has been also a referendum in 2001 in Somaliland, where people have been given the option to decide whether they want to remain as part of Somalia or whether they want to establish their own sovereignty and independence. And overwhelmingly, the people of Somaliland have voted for independence. And that's now part of the Somaliland's constitution. So you won't expect any Somaliland president or administration to change that. This is very much part and parcel of the Somaliland's constitutional law. Thank you.
The gentleman here.
Thanks very much for being here. I'm Mark Yarnell with Refugees International. I'm just wondering if you can elaborate a little bit on the situation in Katumo State and Sillanyo. Given the relative stability in other parts of Somaliland, it's obviously concerning the tension that's flowing up there. And I'm curious if you're able to elaborate a little bit more on what's going on now and kind of potential for solutions that don't ignite a broader conflict. Thanks.
Can you repeat the question, please? I'm sorry. It's good.
Oh, just interested to know what's happening in Sillanyo and the current tension there, and potentials for resolution in a peaceful way that doesn't ignite a broader conflict.
Thank you. First of all, Sillanyo are part of the eastern districts and regions of Somaliland. I do understand there has been some issues in those regions for some time, but we are very pleased to share with the audience that thanks to the peace process and peace offer that President Ahmed Sillanyo has offered to the inhabitants of some of those districts in 2010 have actually worked. As a result of that, Somaliland government have been able to engage with the communities in those areas and those regions, whether it is traditional leaders or political leaders. And as a result of that, we have had to diffuse some of the tensions risk is posed by groups called some of the groups in those areas. And the leaders, as the President mentioned in his report, of those resistance and those groups are now part of the Somaliland government, because we have been able to strike a deal, a peaceful deal with those groups, and they are now parts of the Somaliland administration. We have also making additional efforts. The government has allocated out of its national budget $1.2 million US to help reconstruct basic services in those areas: education, health, and water. We have also changed the way we work with international development agencies, and we have introduced an international NGO law into our system, which actually makes a condition to the NGOs to work, to reach out those areas and to extend development assistance to those eastern districts. I'm also very glad to say that there has been a lot of efforts from the international development agencies, including USAID, that have helped us with some development assistance for those groups. So that's where we are at the moment, and we are still continuing peaceful discussions with some of the communities in those areas.
Thank you. The lady with the blue veil there.
Hello, my name is Fauzia, and I just want to talk to Mr. Sillanyo about issue that someone just mentioned it. And Mr. Sillanyo, since you took the office about 3 years ago, there was about between 1,000 to 2,000 people were killed in Buhodle, Sol, Sanag, and Ain. That people were innocent, civilian, nomadic people. Just like the lady here, Little Halimo, we call her Little Halimo. She was killed when the last election was done in Hudun. When the last election was done in Hudun in January, that was the children, women, and rape happened in Hudun area. What I want to ask you is that when you were mentioning about 21 years, Siad Barre killed and 50,000 in Somaliland. In about 3 years, there was 15,000 people killed in Sol, Sanag, and Ain. That has a name called Khatumi State of Somalia. The people here and you, I'm asking you today, I'm pleading you today, that you have to tell the truth. When this gentleman next to you was talking about it, I didn't know whether I want to cry, whether I want to leave the room. I don't know. I just didn't know what to do with myself listening what he was talking about and what's happening in Sol, Sanag, and Ain Khatumi State of Somalia. I'm asking you today, you tell your government to stop killing innocent people in Sol and Sanag Ain. And the only reason that is happening is that there's two reasons. First, you are forcing them to come along with you, and they say, no, we want to be in part of Somalia. And also, the gas and the oil that you're talking about is part of Sol and Sanag Ain. And that's the other reason that all this killing happening. I'm telling everybody here, this is a little Halima. She's 30 years old.
Do you have a question, please?
My question to you is that I'm pleading to the president today, Mr. Sillanyo, you have to call your organization. You have to call Hargeisa. You want to call Hargeisa and tell them, please stop killing. As we're speaking now, I'm talking to you. There is a killing happening in Hudun. You know that. There's a killing happening in Las Ano. You know that. There's a killing happening anywhere in that region. Please stop it. Please tell the world the truth about what's happening. And anybody want to make a fact checks, that can come to me. I will give you the report, come from the UN, from everywhere. Thank you.
Okay. I think what that lady has said is completely false and far from the facts.
I don't think you should say this is America. You don't talk to women like that. Sorry.
Well, I don't know how to answer to you, because if you
Okay.
the people in Buhodland areas you are talking about are part of Somaliland.
They are not.
They are part of Somaliland. Historic, and they are part of Somaliland.
Sorry, you asked the question.
You have asked a question. Let me answer that question. If you have just want to make a statement, it's up to you. Make the statement, and that's your problem.
Okay, okay. If we move on to the.
Well, I don't know how to answer to you then in that case. You know, I mean, well, just keep quiet then. And let me give me a chance. The people you are talking about are people of Somaliland. It is absolute lies that there has been any killings in that area. If there were clashes at one time in some places, the leaders of those areas are now part of the cabinet of the government. They are ministers in my government. There has been peace initiatives. There have been elders. There have been the government initiative has been made. Peace has been returned to the area. It's people like you who are trying to instigate ordinary people who live in peace with their own, in their own country, in their own region, with their own government, with the elders and so on. But the people like you who are outside, who I don't know what your whatever your motivation is, are the people who are creating the problems. We are trying to solve the problems, and we have solved most of those problems. And we are more concerned about securing peace in the area, talking to those people, allocating tremendous resources to develop education, to develop health, to develop water resources in the area for the people of that area.
Mr. President, since no one has brought it up, I'll make a point of bringing it up. Perhaps if you and the Foreign Minister would like to discuss what is on your agenda this week in your meetings with U.S. leaders. What are you seeking concretely from the administration and also congressional leaders this week?
How so?
We have a couple of objectives for our visit. First of all, we would like to seek an increased development assistance to Somaliland. Somaliland has been assisted, has been getting assistance from other countries, but we would like to have an increase it because we have a lot of challenges. We have an employment issue in our country. We have an increasing number of young people that are coming out of colleges, coming out of universities, but they largely remain unemployed. In a context like Horn of Africa, where there is a lot of security issues, and you have international and local jihadists, you cannot afford leaving your young people unemployed. So this is very much in our international interest, but also regional and international interest. So we're looking for an economic assistance and economic development from US, either from government and the private sector as well, to build our economy, to create jobs, to create opportunities for our people. Secondly, we are very serious about our long-term capacity to continue to be a vehicle for stability and peace and security, and therefore we would like to have a security support. I understand the U.S. government and other members have now lifted arms embargo on Somalia. We would like to see how we can benefit from that. We have been part of the solution in the region. We have been stable and security, so we would like to build our security in order to achieve regional stability and security. We're also looking for Somaliland's special diplomatic states in order to maintain and sustain our achievements. We would like to become a much more vocal in international arenas. We would like to become more, to get a proper representation in both regional and international bodies, and therefore Somaliland is seeking for getting a special states while we are still waiting for the full international recognition. Also, we are trying to talk to the government of the U.S. government to see how we can increase our international, to look into different models of different international assistance. At the moment, the UN assists us through the USAID and international NGOs, but we have developed a much more effective system with UK and Denmark, and that's an international trust funds, where the U.S. government can channel its assistance through that fund, and therefore Somaliland government will make decisions alongside with the U.S. officials on how that money is going to be spent, where that money is going to be spent, and obviously in our districts in the east or the west where haven't been fortunate enough to get a large development assistance, we will channel some of those assistance in those peripheral areas. So these are the common goals we are pursuing, and these are the objectives we want to achieve during our visit here in the U.S.
I think the Minister wanted.
I just want to add one thing. We are, few of us who are U.S. citizens too. more than another thing, what we really want to from the U.S. is to cement and reassure our friendship with the U.S. We have, as Somalilanders, we value the values of America. We aspire their aspirations. And whether it is piracy or whether it's Al-Shabaab, whether it's any other issue that the people of America really value, the Somalilanders do value. What we are more than another thing, we want to reassure for the U.S. and the U.S. people is to give us the chance that we want to succeed. More than other thing, we do want our sons and daughters in the U.S. to die in Somaliland or Somalia because of Al-Shabaab or other people come in there. We do that work. And we are a buffer for all extremism in that region. That is really, really an issue that most U.S. Americans, the people of America misunderstand. It has been a oasis. We value democracy. We value market economy. We are anti-terrorists. We fight with extremism. All these are the fundamentals that the people of America value. And what we want is to reassure and cement those values that we hold dear. It's the same value that Jeffersonians and George Washington and Obama hold dear to that. So what we are saying is these we don't want, with all that we have through for these 22 years, without any decent help from the international community, that we have relied on ourselves. We do not want to go back to what Somalia has been experiencing for the last 22 years. And it is in the interest of America, and it is the interest of the whole international community to really help Somalilanders in their endeavors. Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Siegel, Dr. Siegel, right there.
Joe Siegel with the Africa Center for Strategic Studies at the National Defense University here in Washington. Following on the theme of security, I wanted to throw out for the group really, if you could talk more about what you are doing to combat extremism. We know this is a challenge, a growing challenge beyond Al-Shabaab in the Horn of Africa and East Africa more generally. It would be helpful to hear more of what you have done successfully, what you're planning to do moving forward. And along the same lines, there's growing inroads being made with narcotics trafficking in the region, and what plans and efforts so far Somaliland has undertaken to try to forestall this problem. Thank you.
Somaliland has been doing quite a lot of work on fighting Al-Shabaab and other extremist groups. Because Somaliland has been targeted on a number of occasions. I think the last time was in 2008, October 2008, when Somaliland's presidential palace had been attacked by extremists. And also the offices of international organizations in Hargeisa have been attacked on the same day. A lot of people have lost their lives. Therefore, Somaliland has been, before and after that, has been very vigilant and looking out against extremists. What Somaliland did and is still doing is we work very closely with the UK and US and other governments in terms of sharing intelligence, but also building our capacity, anti-terrorist teams, but also our police and other security agencies' capacity has been extremely developed with assistance from US, UK, and other governments. Secondly, Somaliland has been providing a lot of information to our citizens. We have a very active campaign against extremists and jihadists. And Somaliland people have been educated and have been made it very vigilant to guard themselves against all those people. And it's thanks to our people that we have been able to secure Somaliland so far. But I understand the threat posed by terrorists is common. It's not something unique to us unique to Somalia. It's an international and regional problem, and therefore Somaliland alone will not be able to cope with the problem posed with extremists. And therefore, part of the president's visit to the U.S. is to speak to the U.S. defense and security agencies and try to look how we can better cooperate on the fight against terror.
We also engage with the religious leaders, and we engage with the religious leaders to talk to the public and to talk on the radio and to work with us in all these areas, against terrorism, against religious extremists and groups. So we work fully with them, and they work fully with us.
Well, mindful of your schedule, Excellency, and the need your next engagement, do you have any final words before?
No, it's okay.
Okay. Okay, one last question since.
My name is Solomon Mohammed.
The microphone's up.
My name is Solomon Mohammed. I'm from North Carolina, and I'm from Khartoum State of Somalia. I welcome Mr. Sillanyo and his group, but I will advise you that here in America, we have something they call fact check, and you better be careful now. And, if I go back to my, if you
have a question, we really have to keep this on schedule.
I do have a question. As we know, Somaliland was colonized in British, and there was 5 tribes who were living in that area. And all of you as a president, and all your groups came from one tribe called Isak. There is none of another tribe with the other 4 tribes here with you today. And the only people who want to separate from Somalia is nothing but you, as a Isak tribe. I'm a Durbahante, as a Khartoum state, and the Gudubirse with the Awdal state, with Makhro or Segal state, none of them need to separate from Somalia. Are you the only people who forcing and lying all over the world that you have a legitimate reason to separate?
Do you have a question, not a statement?
Yes, sir, I'm coming up. On the other hand, before I go back to my question, the city of Las Anod, the capital of Seoul, there was 259,000 people used to live there. Somaliland militias and Sillanyo military forced those people to leave the country.
Rubbish.
They killed them, they tortured them. I have it here.
Okay.
Sir,
the
100 people. Yes, sir, I'm coming.
A question,
yes, sir,
or
I'm coming.
if you want to make a statement, have your own.
They were children. They were, the older women. They are women. All of them, they were tortured. They were killed. And they evacuated the city. I'm coming to the question. Mr. Sillanyo, you are killing the people day and night. As this morning, I got a call from my hometown. The little girl.
Is there a question here?
I'm coming.
It can't come much later. If you want to make a speech, please.
You don't have no reason to force other tribes. You don't have no legitimacy to do whatever you do and kill the people left to the right. What we're asking you, when you going to stop killing the people and stop lying around the world? That something is not legitimate that you're telling the people here. And I'm asking, like this lady said, anybody who needs the fact, we have the fact over here. In Somaliland, they really lying, killing the people, and he's the man who's ordering people to kill left to the right.
I don't think there's a question here.
There has not been a question to answer.
Well, I think we have to conclude.
Yeah. I guess you have to start before you can stop. Okay. But please join me in thanking President Sillanyo and his chair.